Okay. Your website success was what happened there? Give me a second. Privacy regulation. Okay, how's everybody doing? Um, if you could do me a favor, please, if you're watching me on Zoom, if you could put in the chat box that you can hear me, that would be great. Thank you so much for doing that. Just put that in the old chat box. That would be fantastic that you can hear me. And where you're listening from, that would be great. And then if you are watching on YouTube, if you could do the same, that would be fantastic as well. Just give me a second here. I just got to get everything lined up. And I think we are ready to go. So, if you have any questions for me, since this is Ask Me Anything, literally anything, I am yours for the next hour or so, up until about the top of the hour I've got. So if you've got questions for me, then just you can put them in the chat box on either Zoom or YouTube, and I will be happy to answer those questions from you, whatever you've got on your business, on raising money, whatever. I'm happy to answer those questions. So just come on in and give me those questions, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So let's see what we've got in terms of questions. I'm going to go look here at my handy dandy question list. So just give me a second and we will get started. All right. Okay. How do I find a, a founding engineer? How do I find a founding engineer? In other words, imagining you are a non-technical founder and you're looking for somebody to augment your skills and you need a founding engineer. So I'll tell you what I did, since I'm kind of in the same boat, even though I am technical. But having said that, I still needed a founding engineer because I needed somebody better than me, much better than me. And the way that I did it was I networked like crazy. I started asking everybody that I knew who might be able to help me, do you know anybody who might be interested in working with me? And I got a whole bunch of names of people. I started meeting with people for lunch, for coffee, for dinner, whatever, and started talking to them about what I was doing. And some people weren't excited by it, and that's fine. You don't want those people. And then there were other people who were excited by it, and they weren't the right people. And then eventually I found the right person. That is what happened. That's the short story. The longer story is that I found somebody to be my co-founder who was going to be my marketing guy. And then he and I started looking for people. And then he suggested, well, there's this other guy, and I think he might be really good. Maybe you should be, maybe we should talk to him. So we went to lunch with him, and I met with him a few times, really liked him, super smart technically. I knew people that knew him, checked him out. This is, by the way, something very important with any of the people that you bring on, be them co-founders, engineers, whomever, do reference checks. They're super critical to do. So I did some reference checks on this particular person. People said he was a guru, brilliant technically, etc. So it seemed like a great decision to bring this fellow on, and I brought him on. Then it blew up, which happens about 50% of the time, which is why, as the second piece of this question is, what do you do to protect yourself as a founder? What do you do then? So that's the second thing that we have to think about is what do we do? How do we protect ourselves as a founding CEO? What do we do to protect ourselves so that we don't get burned? And the way that we protect ourselves is that if we're going to give somebody 20, 30, 40% of our company, they don't get it immediately. It vests. And typically we have what's called a cliff, which means that usually there's a 1-year cliff where nobody vests anything. If they're still with us in a year, then they'll vest a quarter of what we've given them, what we've agreed to as co-founders. Then in the next year, they'll start vesting monthly for the next 36 months. That's typically how it's done. So you're protected because most co-founder relationships blow up in the first year. Mine did. So we left, got nothing. And that was that. There's more to the story, but it's at least for our purposes of how do we find a co-founder if that's what you do. So you have to start meeting people one way or the other. You can network. You can look on LinkedIn. That's another great way to do it. Put in the traits that you need. Go find that person on LinkedIn and reach out to them. And just keep doing that. And you can meet people and they may not be the right person, but they may still like you. And it's okay to say, do you know anybody who might be interested? I found engineers that way with people that weren't right for what I was doing, but they said, there's this other person I know, and they would be really good for what you're looking for. So there are all sorts of things we can do along the networking lines. I think I'm going to emphasize networking here because the more and the closer the person is to you, and the more you know that person, the more likely it's going to be that you're going to be successful in what you're doing. And that is critical in all of this. Absolutely critical, because it's super hard, to make this fly unless the person on the other end, is somebody that and has good references and everything else. And even then it's difficult. As I said, in my case, it blew up. And I had a second co-founder that it blew up with too. And these are all people that I knew. In fact, the second co-founder I knew for 20 years and it blew up. So, it is what it is. It's tough to find people, but those are my suggestions is network like crazy. Keep asking people that who do you know who might be able to help me? And you'll be amazed at how quickly your network will grow. And then the second thing I would do is use LinkedIn. And then beyond that, it gets harder and harder and more difficult to find the right person. I'm sure there's stories of people that have done it other ways, but those are my two main go-tos to answer that question. So if you have a question for me, put your questions in the chat box and I will be happy to help you. Happy to answer your questions. And if you are interested in working with me and you're interested in joining our free group of startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch. It's free for life. It doesn't get any better than that. There are 1,700 people in the group, all startup CEOs. You can join for free. There should be a link to it on my YouTube channel for all the YouTube visitors out there that are watching. You can do that. And if you're interested in taking it up a notch from there, you can join the paid group that I have, Zero to Pitch Gold. It's $125 a month right now. Price is going up in a little bit. And you can cancel anytime that you want. There's no long-term commitment. And if you want to get good faster, you want to get your pitch deck, which is what 90% of the people in the group are there for. Other people are there to help grow their businesses. Either one of the two. Great environment to do that. Get lots of help. I have office hours daily, to help people in there. $125 a month. Doesn't get any better than that. You can find the link also on my YouTube channel. So any questions, put them in the chat box and I'll be happy to answer them for you. All right, so we have a question from one of our existing Zero to Pitch members. And that's a perk of being a Zero to Pitch member is you get priority on these calls. So let's see what the question is. We won first place at Incubator Startup Event. How can I leverage that early validation and the progress we've made since to convince the incubator that we're worth backing now in my upcoming interview? Well, I think you're on the right track. You want to show them that. Plus, you got to have a pitch as well beyond that. So you have to share with people the vision for what you're doing. It is great that you won first place at a startups event. That is an indication that you're on to something. However, you need to show more. Both there are two pieces to this. Is one, we want to show, hey, we're executing, that we're building the right team, that we're doing the right things, that people are responding to what we're doing. Incubator doing that is great. What would be even better would be to show, hey, I've got customers buying what we're doing. I don't know what stage you're at, so it's a little bit hard to tell. But if you have customers doing what you're doing, fantastic. That's helpful. That moves you along even further. That would be great. So the more traction that we show, if we've got customers buying from us, customers saying, hey, we want to do something with you, whatever it is, those things help a lot. Those things move us along closer. If you're starting to build out your team, that's another show of progress. You also want to share with people, here's the big vision of what we're doing. When we're building a pitch deck, we're trying to show people that we've got something worth investing in. As an investor, I have to make money. How do I make money? It's how valuable is your company? How valuable your company is determined by how big the opportunity is. So if you're showing people, hey, my vision is to go after this big thing. I'll use SpaceX as an example, since that was 25 years ago that company started, and the CEO, started off saying, hey, I'm going to go over to Mars. That's my big vision. It may take me a long time to get there, and hey, here we are 25 years later, it still hasn't gotten there, but I'm going to make you a ton of money along the way. The vision, how big the opportunity is super important. So we have to share with people, here's the vision of where we're going. Here's how we're going to get there. Here's the progress along the way. The more you show people that you're on the right track and that you have something big that you're going after, the more likely it is that people are you'll be able to raise money from these people. Hope that helps. Okay, let's go to our next question. What do you recommend if one of the founders can bridge the time using his own funds until the startup is ready to raise a good seed round? Okay, this is a really good question. And I think there's a follow-up there that says that might shift the dynamics in shareholder structure. Okay, this is a really good question. And the way to think about this is that now this person is becoming an investor in the company. So now as an investor, it's a little bit different than as a co-founder. So as a co-founder, let's say that you divide up let's say there are just two of you in this mythical example I'm going to go through, and you've divided up the equity 60-40 between the two of you. And now the founder is going to put in, I don't know, let's say $50,000. I'm just going to make up a number. And we believe that's worth 10% of the company. So as an investor now, he has a $50,000 investment, which gives him 10% of the company as investor. That's separate from the equity that he gets as a founder. So now that 100% that the two of you own, he's now going to get 10% as a investor. Okay, so he has 10%. And then that gets divided out. Interestingly enough, now everybody else, your pile gets diluted by 10%. So the 60% that you as the CEO has, that gets diluted by 10%. So now you're down to 54%. Okay, makes sense? The 40% that he has as a co-founder gets diluted down to 36%. So now he's at 36 plus 10, 46%. You're at 54 at the end of this. His 10%, he gets immediately. Remember this other example I was talking about, that you want to make sure everything vests over time? Well, that's different for an investor. An investor gets all of it. There should be no vesting schedule for that. It's preferred stock. It's different. Now, as founders, we're going to dilute, we're going to vest over time. So the 36% that he has is now going to vest over time. I hope that explains things. But that's the way that it changes from a pure math standpoint. And if things don't work out, he's going to own that 10% forever. So he'll be a 10% owner of the company, even if he flames out. The other one, that's fine. Then he just goes back to just being an investor. So I hope that helps. Okay, if you have questions for me, put them in the chat box in either Zoom for my Zoom audience, which is my zero to pitch audience, or on YouTube. Does not matter which one. I'm happy to answer the questions in either place. If you're my YouTube audience and you have not yet joined Zero to Pitch, my free group for startup CEOs, super easy. All you have to do is just follow the link and you can join. It's on my YouTube channel. And if you're interested in taking it up a notch from there and you want to join Zero to Pitch Gold, which is my paid group, I have daily office hours. And unlike today, where this is in a webinar format, one to many, in Zero to Pitch Gold, office hours is in a meeting format, so we can actually talk to each other. It is great. So you get access to me every day. There are classes in there that you get access to. It's a great group of people in there. $125 a month. Cancel anytime. Doesn't get any better than that. Okay, let's go to our next question. This is another good question. Excellent question so far today. What type of traction is considered to be a good one for an R&D startup? Funding to build high-tech solutions before any revenue. Okay. Think Rivian. Okay, well, Rivian is okay. That's a hard one because that's a car company, and I happen to know a little bit about that world just because a friend of mine was the first investor in Tesla, and the first institutional investor in Tesla. And I will give you his quote to me on this for what it's worth. I would have never invested in Tesla if I knew how much money it was going to take to build the car company. So take that for what it's worth. That was his comment to me about it. Yes, he made a bunch of money off of the deal, but sometimes ignorance is bliss. So it happens. So what type of traction for an R&D startup? Actually, I'll go back to your question. So if we're just doing pure R&D at the beginning, and I've been involved in some companies like this that eventually get to that point, what's the most important thing for that? Let's say you're going after a huge market like the car market, like Rivian is, and you could have a multi-billion-dollar valuation at some point in time. What's the first thing that's going to get you funded? It's going to be you and your team. You have to be able to pull this little magic trick off. You have to have a great team of people around you, and you have to be excellent and great and have to have a little bit of a track record of success. If you don't have a track record of success, it's going to be very difficult to raise money. Very difficult. If you have a track record of success, it can be much easier, to raise money. So that's the first piece of the puzzle here is you and your team have to be stellar and excellent and have a good track record. With the people that I've worked with and in my own personal case of having raised money for an R&D company that was going to need a lot of money to get going. The way that we were able to pull that off is I had a track record of success and the people around me were really good. That's how we were able to do the first piece of this. The second piece of this is you have to start being able to prove things along the way. So let's say you can get started, you get some money in the company. What's the next step? Because it's going to be a long road. Let's say it's a 5-year road, to get from start until you're able to start getting some revenue in the business. We have to be able to show proof points along the way that what our R&D is doing is actually working. And it can't be, I need $20 million to prove this. We have to be thinking smaller amounts of money and very creative ways of proving things. For example, and I've seen this time and again of hardware-ish companies building a physical product, which usually costs millions. How do you do this in today's environment? Well, we start proving things in software. We get creative and we find ways. And before you argue with me, no, it has to be done in hardware. I would call my BS meter on this. Every single time I've been involved in a company, I have seen time and time again, they've been able to prove it and prove small chunks of this in software. And we do these small experiments, which build up to the bigger experiment, and eventually we get there. That's how it's done. So that's the answer to your question of how do we start building quote unquote traction when revenue may be far away. We start proving our points, because if people believe in the market, they're going to be willing to invest in the time. But we have to show them and give them off ramps just in case you're failing. That's how I've seen it work. And the companies that I've been involved with that have done that are now worth billions. And they've been successful this way. Okay, let's go to the next question on our list. How can I reach the best international investors from Bangladesh, knowing my startup will disrupt the world economy, but I don't have cash to move anywhere? Okay, well, it's going to be a challenging thing for you. I'm going to be really honest with you, because you have to look and see who's going to invest in Bangladesh. I just did a webinar on this subject, but the short answer to this is, what would I do if I was in your shoes? I would build a list of investors that invest in Bangladesh, because that is almost by definition what you're going to need. If you can't find investors that invest in Bangladeshi companies, then you're screwed. So you have to find people that invest in Bangladeshi companies that are interested in what you're doing. And then, just like I was talking about previously, you got to sell them on what you're up to. You got to get people excited and reduce the risk. Flip it. Make it easier for the investor to say yes. Okay, let's go to the next question. Is it possible to become a CEO as a CIO in a big firm? Are you talking about in the same firm? And the CIO is a chief information officer or something like that, I would imagine. The difference between becoming a startup CEO and becoming a CEO in a larger organization is it's a pyramid in a larger organization. You're competing against all the other VPs and C-level executives for the top spot if the CEO leaves or retires or gets fired or whatever. And sometimes people go outside to hire the CEO as well. So it's not a given that you're going to become that person. So yeah, it's possible, but you got to compete against everybody else. And as I said, it's a pyramid structure at the end of the day about whether or not you're going to get there. So that's the challenge in that particular role. And the board's the one that hires the CEO. You report to the board as the CEO, which is also true in a startup, but it's really not. In a startup, you really report to the investors, not so much the board. But anyways, that's the answer to your question. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. Okay, let's go to our next question on our list. I have a company now founded in Sweden. Cool. We're a service AI startup, and my co-founders are Chinese. Okay. I'm finding people are having safety concerns because of their nationality. Do you find this in the US also? I'm not sure what you mean by safety concerns. Is it safety in investing? What I would tell you is, let's ignore the fact that they're in China. That whenever you have remote teams, there's always more risk. Be it Sweden to China, Sweden to India, Sweden to Ukraine, or wherever else you can get quote unquote cheap talent. There's always a bigger risk because it's very hard to manage remote teams. It's a lot more overhead, to do it. It takes a lot more communication to do it. So you have to be really stellar at this, and the people on the other end have to be self-starting and stellar as well. So if that's what you're talking about, then that's probably where you're finding the pushback. So what do? You have to start showing people, hey, my team is executing. You have to overcome the risks. That's the answer to your question is we have to be able to overcome the risks if we're going to be able to pull this off. So I hope that helps. Okay, if we have any questions for me, if you're watching me on Zoom, which means that you are part of the existing Zero to Pitch audience, you can put your questions in the chat box and I will answer those priority. In other words, you jump to the top of the line. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can put your questions in the chat box as well on YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And we'll go for another half hour or so, I would imagine, something like that. And then I got to hop off. And then if you are interested, I'll put in my free plugs here as well. If you're interested in joining my free group for startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch, where there's a community there, we do AMAs pretty much every week. I do pitch deck reviews in there as well for people. As much value as I can bring people for free, try and bring it. There is a link on my YouTube channel that you can just click on and apply, and you're in. Very simple, lifetime free membership. Doesn't get any better than that. If you want to take it up a notch and you really want to get going quickly, if you really want to raise your money faster, then join my paid group, Zero to Pitch Gold. $125 a month right now. Price is going up pretty soon. You can cancel anytime you want. I do office hours every day where we go pretty in depth on pitch decks, pitch deck reviews, you name it. And it's a meeting format, so we actually get to talk to each other. So you've got that value add. You have the value add of all the classes that I have in there, which will help you learn how to pitch your business like a pro. Other things are going on in there as well, free community as well. So you get all of this for $125 a month. Literally, it's about $25,000 of value for 125 bucks a month. Great deal. All right, so let's go back to our questions. How much stock is it common to give advisors? We've heard between 1% to 4%. Wow, that's a huge amount personally. They must be incredible advisors to give them 1% to 4%. The typical deal would be 0.5% for 2 years. That's a typical advisory agreement that you would get for a reasonably active advisor you might talk to once a month or something like that, 0.5%. 1% to 4%, that's a lot of equity to give to somebody who's not going to be a full-time employee at your company. I would only do 1% or more for a guru-like person, think like Steve Jobs, somebody who's going to have so much value to your business that you can't live without that person, and that's why you would do it. But 1% to 4% for somebody who's just advising you, wow, that's a massive amount. And 2 to 8 hours a month, that's a large commitment for most advisors, is what I would tell you also. If they're emergencies, sure, maybe they'll get involved more. But most advisors, because your stock, typically people that you're giving stock to don't need it. Yes, they're happy to advise you, but the 0.5% isn't going to change their life in most cases. So it's not the great deal you think it is when you start trying to do these. And I usually say no, by the way, just you can understand when people tell me, oh, you need to give us minimum time commitments, blah, blah, blah. I'm usually out because it's not worth my time for most of them, is what I would tell you. So 0.5% is what I would tell you is the typical deal. Vesting monthly for 2 years is a typical advisory deal, maybe going up to 1% for somebody who's really got a name brand or something like that. Okay, this is going back to the fellow from Bangladesh. You're talking about your product. It's worldwide. Okay, it's a P2P service. Vehicle sharing platform. Vision is to make an ideal economy without energy centralized control. That's great, but you're not understanding the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is you're in Bangladesh and you can't leave. That's the fundamental problem. You're looking for people that are going to invest in your company in Bangladesh. You have to find people that are interested and willing to invest in that country's economy and in companies that exist in that country. That is the first part of your funnel. It's a 1-0 event. If they're not interested in investing in Bangladeshi companies, you're done. You're not going to get them to invest no matter how great your idea is, because guess what? You're competing against, let's say I live here in the States, which I do. You come to me with your great idea. Let's say your idea is fantastic. And I'm choosing between investing here in the United States in an area where I can get to the people pretty easily versus investing in Bangladesh. You have to remember, you're competing against all these other businesses. And I don't invest in Bangladeshi companies, no matter how good they are. I'm not going to invest in your company. I'm using this as an example just so you can kind of understand it. It's just not going to happen. So you have to be looking for people that are interested in investing in those companies. My guess is those are going to be expats. In other words, people that used to live in Bangladesh are Bangladesh citizens or used to be citizens of Bangladesh, have made money and want to reinvest in the country because they love the country. That's your best bet. Those people, you have to find them. Probably the best tool to find them is something like Crunchbase, I would imagine. Look there, build up a list. Hopefully you can find people, ask, start networking like crazy. Use your network of people that you know, and maybe you can find people like this. Okay. The next question we have. How many articles recently about the possibility of a 3-person unicorn company where the 3 people are the founder, the numbers person, the words person? Do you believe that will happen in the near future? No, is my short answer. Do you feel those are the 3 most important hires of a new startup? That's the better question. No. I do not believe the founder, who's an aggressive visionary, the numbers person, and a words person are the 3 most important people to found a company. Typically, it's going to be, yes, you're right. It's going to be the visionary, whomever that person is, somebody who's got the vision of where the business is going and what they can do, and the killer idea that they're going after. The second piece of this would be, I need somebody to help me who's going to augment my skills. Either I'm the business person or I'm the technology person, one of the two. And those are the 2 most important people at the beginning, to get going. Somebody with the idea and somebody who can help implement the idea. Those are your 2 people. So a words person, irrelevant. Numbers person, you're usually the business person is the numbers person. So a lot of this stuff is all in one, but I need somebody to implement. Okay, let's go to the next question here. Do you get to the board as a startup founder, not CEO? Okay. Well, okay, first of all, let me give you my view on boards of directors of startups, especially early stage startups. They are not what you think they are. They are not places where the grand decisions of the company are made and huge strategizing goes on. Doesn't work that way. My view, and maybe this is a biased, jaded view, but it's my view. My view is that boards of directors for early stage startups are way overrated. They have 0 to little value in an early stage startup. And you want to delay making your board of directors more than a 1-person board, which means just CEO only. And I'm speaking here from a US base, that in the US, we can have 1-person boards of directors, make it yourself as a CEO. That's it. Don't add your other co-founders in, because guess what? Co-founders quit. And then you're screwed, because now suddenly you have a board of directors with co-founders at the beginning, and you've made life miserable for yourself, possibly with the potential of getting blown out by your co-founders. Let's say there are three of you, and you bring on all three of you to your board because, wow, wouldn't it be cool? We'll all be on the board together. And then suddenly what happens? Oh yeah, that's right. Suddenly the other two gang up on you and you're done. So no, make it a one-person board, just yourself, until you absolutely positively have to have a board, which probably means you've got venture money coming in. And then the board's going to expand. And then maybe you'd bring on one of your co-founders at that point in time, depending upon board composition. But if you're not the founder, let me tell you, it's overrated. Just execute. Don't worry about stupid things like boards of directors. I know it sounds cool and it feels cool and everything, but it's BS. All right, let's go to our next question on our list. We've got a bunch of them lined up here, and I want to get through them before we're done at the top of the hour. I have been told that angel VC firms don't invest in marketing expenses, as that is considered higher risk. Should I just focus on traction marketing with smaller budget than looking for investors? No, you should run your company the way you see fit. You're going to need at some point to market, however you do that. So I don't know where you're getting your advice, but it's not good advice. There is a timing element of this because, yes, at the beginning, you're going to need to develop your product first and then start figuring out how you're going to market it. And, I'll give you a book to read, which I think is the best book on the subject. It's a book called Traction by Gabriel Weinberg. It's a weekend read. Buy it today. By Monday, you could be done with the book and be up and running. And it will help you figuring out what marketing channels to choose. Your go-to-market, but let me go back to this. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here a little bit. Your go-to-market strategy is a critical piece of success. I have seen a lot of great ideas die because they couldn't figure out how to market them. Now, what does that mean? Go to market means, how do customers become aware of your product or service, whatever it is? They don't know you exist. It doesn't matter how good your product or service is. And if that means that you have to invest money in it, then yeah, go ahead and invest money. At some point, you're going to need to spend the money to get customers buying your product. It's just, be smart about it. That's the best advice. Right now, if you've got 0 customers, what's your goal? To get to 1 customer. If you have 1, what's your goal? To get to 10. If you've got 10, to get to 100, so forth and so on. That's what's important at this stage. And then you have to figure out what's the best way to do that. A lot of times at the beginning, my go-to-market strategy might be, I know the customers already. I can just use my existing contacts to talk to these people and get to them. And that can be your strategy, and that's great. Just do what's smart. If you run your company the right way, rather than thinking, what do angels want or what do VCs want, you'll be so much better off. Infinitely better off. I hope that helps. I'm getting much love from Sweden, which is cool. Thank you. I like Sweden. It's a cool place. No pun intended. Okay. Okay, there you go. So hopefully my Bangladeshi friend, I gave you some inspiration. So go find your Singapore-based investors. That's your tribe. Go find them, sell them, get them excited by what you're doing, lay it all out there. That's the best way to go. Have I ever worked with any family offices from the Gulf states, the UAE, or Qatar, I hope I'm saying that right, Qatar, for instance? Is the process of fundraising the same as it would be with regular VCs in the US? Yes and no is what I would tell you. I do have experience with this. I have a very short, funny story if you're interested in this, where the company I'm involved with, we pitched to a person from what I will call a family office, which usually means a royal family, from one of these countries. I won't say which one. And when we pitched him, it was, I believe it was September. It was down in Los Angeles. And he came in fresh from Burning Man. And if you can imagine somebody coming from Burning Man to meeting you, I think it was at the Beverly Hills Hotel or something like that. So pretty ritzy, swanky space. And we're sitting there in the conference room waiting for him. And he comes in, he's got on like a cowboy hat, jeans, t-shirt, and comes in, sit down, do do the formalities of starting the meeting. And then he kind of pulls out something from his pocket and he's smoking something. And the person I'm with, the CEO and I are looking at each other. Like, what the hell is this guy smoking? And have the meeting goes well. He says, okay, I'll write you a check right now for $25 million. No, it's exciting. Meeting ends and we look at each other and we get in the car on our way back and we both start laughing. It's like, what? And both have the same thing pop out of our mouth at the same time. What in the hell was this guy smoking? Because we couldn't figure out the smell. Didn't smell like marijuana, didn't smell like normal tobacco. It's like, what in the hell is this? So anyways, just funny little story. But to the answer of your question, yes, the process is pretty much the same. You've got to pitch people and sell them, get them excited. And just like any non-traditional investors, the questions may be a little bit different. The depth of the diligence may be a little bit different. And sometimes a commitment is not a commitment would be the only other thing I would tell you is people can say, hey, I'm ready to invest. And then magically, which is what happened in this particular case, the person we were dealing with, I'll write you the check. And, sure enough, the head of the fund, his father, said, nah, I'm not ready to write a $25 million check. I don't want to do that, even though the guy was worth bazillions, billions, multi-billionaire, didn't want his son playing with that much money. So it's a little bit more Wild Westy, I would say. But yeah, the process is similar. It's get introduced, sell, and yes, you can make that work. I have another company I'm involved with where they were able to pull off getting investors from that part of the world for what they're doing, and it's worked out quite well for them. Okay, next question. How can you tell if people would buy your product or service? How do you measure purchasing power? It's really simple. The only way to know is when people write you checks. So what do I mean by write you check? When they pay you, they got to buy something. So we can have a great idea, but we have to put ourselves out there and we've got to get people saying, yes, I will pay you for this and actually pay you, even if it is $1 for something that's worth $10. It's important to get people to pay. So that's how we start measuring and this is part of, when we start thinking about product market fit, it's not just the product. There's the market fit part of this too. So we can have a great product. We got to have the right features for the product. But then when we think about the loop of things that we have to have happen, we have to have a great idea. We have to make customers aware of our great idea to get to the right people, and they have to be willing to buy. And it's like, where's the friction all the way through this loop that we have here? And if people aren't willing to buy, then guess what? Something's off. And we have to go figure it out. That's why the buying piece, you can't forget that. That's how we prove it. People buying. That's the traction thing that came up earlier today. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. Hi, Brett. We have a patent. It will cost a lot to enforce. Is there another way to go around it? Okay, here's the thing about early stage startups and patents. Patents cost money both to get and then to enforce. It is really difficult for an early stage startup to enforce a patent because that means you're going to have to go sue somebody, and depending upon who you're suing, they may have a lot of money, and this can get delayed in the courts for a long time, and then you're out of money. So the way I view patents for early stage companies is they're for defense at the beginning, which is great to have them. Because if you have something that blocks people from doing what you're doing, that's great. Those are the best kind of patents, broad blocking patents that ideally you would have. But usually you're going to trade them for something. Maybe you're going to give them licensing rights. Maybe you get rights to some of their patents, but it's going to be very hard to enforce. Maybe you can do it, but it's really difficult to go that road. Longer term, as we get bigger and stronger, then we can go to offense with patents, which means we can sue people for violating our patents. But that's usually not until we're bigger and stronger. Okay, let's go to our next question. How do I feel about platforms like Start Engine that allow non-accredited investors to crowdsource fundraising rounds? Do you see any long-term drawbacks or challenges? I haven't done it, so it's hard for me to comment. I think with all these things, they look great. How great are they? Can you get people to buy in? I don't think the drawback, I don't think if you can get people to invest, I think it's fine because they're just a class of investors and that's fine. I don't think, if you're looking at raising more institutional money later, I don't think it matters personally. So I think you're fine either way on that. But I don't have any view on how good they are because I just haven't done it and I don't know anybody that's done it. Okay, I like hearing testimonials. Brett, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thanks for all the knowledge you're sharing. Definitely joining your monthly subscription, worth every cent. Thank you. Can't wait to work with you. That's very cool. So a quick plug on that. So yes, I do have a paid service, paid online group coaching, $125 a month called Zero to Pitch Gold. You can find the link on my YouTube channel for that. As I said, all of $125 a month. Cancel anytime you want. There are office hours literally every day where we can actually talk to each other, which is pretty cool. There are also classes in there on how to pitch your business. We go through those as well. And there's a community in there where you can ask and answer questions, all for $125 a month. If you're wanting to learn a little bit more about working with me first, you can join the free group Zero to Pitch, also available on my YouTube channel. It's free for life, doesn't get any better than that. I do pitch deck reviews in there about once a month. I do webinars as well. So you get all of that also. All right, we got time for maybe one or two more questions. Let's see what we got. How can I tell if my investment ask is too much? Or basically, if the person would write the check? Well, I think you're answering the question for yourself. First of all, ideally, and I don't know what we're doing here, so it's hard for me to give you great advice, but I'll give you the high-level advice. In any negotiation, as scary as this might seem, you're much better off letting the other side go first. So rather than having an ask like on Shark Tank or wherever you're located in the world, that whatever the Shark Tank equivalent is in your part of the world, I think it's Dragon's Den in maybe the UK and Canada and I don't know, whatever it's called, where they do this ask thing. I'm asking for this percentage for this amount or whatever. Ideally, let the other side give you an offer because think of it this way. It's like, with public stocks, right? If I invest in a public company, there's a bid and an ask, right, for that stock, which gives me an idea of what the price is going to be. There's a market. Well, there's a market for your company too. It's just a limited market of a small number of investors. They set the price. You can negotiate it if you don't like what you're hearing, but that's the market. So yes, you can say, here's what I'm offering, but you're much better off because who does this every day for a living? You or the investors? The investors, obviously. So you're better off, much, much, much better off, letting the investor go first. That's a much better way. And the only way we're going to know if they're going to write the check is when they write the check. But the problem is when you ask for too much, you can scare people away. So when we ask, If it's one investor, if they said, no, 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 I want to hear from you first, then what I would do is I would give a range and I would do my homework of what other deals have gone for like yours. What's the price range for it? There's some videos I have on this subject on my YouTube channel. You can find them there. All right. Let me make sure I answer this question. I may have time for one more after this. Brett, is it common for someone with an extensive network, experience, and celebrity status to be an advisor on like a dozen companies? Probably not. Um, but I think I need a little bit more detail to give you a better answer than that. I'm hesitating a little bit, but the reason why I'm hesitating a little bit is when we talk about celebrity status, which indicates that they're really in demand, that they're a known brand, a known person. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer the question. So it's a little bit broad, but it seems like a lot to be an advisor the way I think about advisors. Coaches are a little bit different, but advisors, if I'm advising 12 companies, that's a lot. That means their time's pretty spread out. So something sounds off to me. Maybe that's the best way I can describe this to you. If something feels off. All right. Okay, I have a question here. Okay, let's say it's somebody like Shaquille O'Neal. Well, what's Shaquille O'Neal going to give you or anybody like that? I love the guy. I think he's very humorous. But what is he really going to give you for his money? What for your money, right? Not much. He's just kind of a name. So in other words, it's a branding thing, right? Oh, Shaq is supporting my business. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to get sage advice. You're just going to get the brand name. Okay. Hopefully that helps. What do I think about the Turkish market? Don't know it well enough, to know. What I do know is that you have a dictator, and that there's a lot of inflation there. So I know that piece of it. I know, and I've worked with a lot of Turkish people, interesting enough, in my career. The guy who hired me years ago, brilliant engineer named Ziya Boyasigler, who sadly passed away about 10 years ago, was a brilliant engineer. And there are other Turks I work with. So I do know that there are great engineers that come out of Turkey, super nice people. But in terms of the market itself, don't know much about it. So I can't really answer. Okay, last question I'm going to answer today. We're a public fintech startup using an OTC vehicle to raise $75 million. Whoa, that's a lot of money. Can you advise on revising our business plan of financials to attract? I can't advise you here. That's way too long. To be able to advise you here. If this is something serious, reach out to me on my website, brettjfox.com, and apply to talk to me. That would be the best thing that I would talk to you about, in terms of, because certainly I can help you with, I think, what you're describing. Okay, I'll answer one more. We're creating an application for healthy planned meals. We think that there's a market gap, calculated expenses, but the problem is that we're not sure if it will be too much for the investor. The answer, the only thing I can tell you is the only way you find out is by asking. That's the only way. And there is a little bit of a trial and error piece of this in terms of, well, I think I need this amount of money. Is there a market for it? Maybe I need to pull back a little bit and reduce the amount. And the only way you're going to figure it out is by trial and error. So I hope that helps. I recognize it's a generalized answer, but try it. You just got to be okay with going out there. That's what I would tell everybody is just get out there, start learning, fail, take your lumps and get more information. That's the best way to go with these things. So with that, I'm out of time for today. I want to thank everybody for popping in here. It's a blast as always to do these. And I'll be back soon. Again, if you're interested in joining my free group, Zero to Pitch, there's a link for that on the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in joining the paid group for $125 a month, daily office hours, I've got one in an hour. You can join today, $125 a month. Zero to Pitch Gold, there's also a link for that. And you can be in instantly with that and be working, learning, and everything else today. So with that, I'm going to leave you. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. And I look forward to doing this again soon.